What's going on, boxing fans? I'm back here with another video here set for you guys. Gonna be giving my recap and reaction of the George Kambosos Jr. versus Richard Hitchins card that recently just came on the Zone Boxing. Pretty much going to talk about the co-main event and the main event. There was the only two fights that really piqued my interest because obviously the names of Kambosos and Hitchins and him upcoming in his boxing career and actually making himself into a star as of right now, and as well as Andy Cruz being going in against Mashiro. I believe is the Japanese boxer that he went against, who was 17-1 so far, and obviously Andy Cruz so far undefeated, 6-0, now 3 KOs. Very, very different approach from boxing. Obviously, coming from that amateur pedigree of the Cuban boxing school, with usually everybody being more slick, back footed, counter puncher, solid paw stance. He is working in the orthodox stance and is now working with Jaron Boots Ennis' father. So he's been working over there in Philadelphia in that camp, pretty much just working on his power, staying more firm on his feet and just letting them shots go. Mix that in with obviously the Cuban amateur pedigree that he already has. And it so far has been a recipe for disaster for the boxers that he's been going against so far. He's been absolutely lighting the world on fire. And in this one, it just showed levels pretty much that Mashiro could not be able to reach. Andy Cruz from the onset, the jab was working in overtime. It continuously was landing. Mashiro had no answer to be able to negate that because obviously he had no head movement and upper body movement as well to be able to move away from that type of jab, and as well as the speed was another other difference as well. But the power, that's something that again Andy Cruz has been working on heavily, trying to invest in that, trying to be able to make sure that he can be able to land these power shots that he's trying to be able to land. And he landed hellacious right hands continuously over and over. It was just unrelenting. He continuously landed his 1-2s down the pipe. And finally, for Mashiro in that third round, he went down twice. And it looked like he was just getting pummeled from the onset then. And then in the fifth round, he get a TKO finish, get a stoppage from the referee. And Andy Cruz is still undefeated. He's fighting in the lightweight division. So a lot of names, we have Williams Abeda versus Shakur Stevenson matched up so far. Even though he doesn't have a lot of experience and a lot of names on his resume, Andy Cruz seems like the type of fighter that's taking the Vasily Lomachenko route, where he's just trying to be able to get a lot of names, build his resume, not trying to stat pad and try to be able to get as much names very quickly. He's not very old, but he is having time on his side where he's not looking for these stat padding type of performances where he's fighting cans and he's just getting easy dubs. Raymond Moralta is a champion in the division. You have Lamont Roach. Gervonta Davis obviously is a huge name. I don't think he's going to get that as of right now, especially with Davis being across the street. Frank Martin as well is still with PBC, but I could be able to see a type of matchup with that. Abdullah Mason is still young in his career, and I don't think they're going to want to be able to put a type of matchup with him and Andy Cruz anytime yet, but it would be a tremendous matchup I would see later in the future that would be happening. But Andy Cruz has a fruitful amount of names to be able to go to in the lightweight division. He continues to be able to just run rampant and run roughshod on this division, and I think that he's going to be continuing doing so in the future. And moving on to the main event, and that was Richard Hitchins versus George Kambosos Jr. You already pretty much knew what the outcome was going to be on this one. Hitchins, even though I don't think that he is a tremendous top end tier talent, the potential is definitely there. I do think that he's a very, very good fighter. His boxing IQ, his acumen, his defense, he's very responsible, very quick witted. The counters in this one, I mean, you already know what George Kambosos is, man. He had a performance of a lifetime against Teofimo Lopez, who was riding high after the Loma win and being undisputed. Kambosos won that. Then he fought Devin Haney twice and got absolutely outclassed in that one. He had a few wins, or maybe he got a couple wins back onto his resume, and then lost to Lomachenko in a fight where that seemingly is Lomachenko's retirement fight, which shout out to Lomachenko, who's going to be able to bow out by himself away from boxing, even though I do think that maybe he could have a few fights left in his career, but nonetheless, shout out to Loma. You already know what George Kambosos is. He is a hard worker. That's exactly what he is. He's a hard-working boxer, making his way to things, putting his nose to the grind and getting things done. But talent-wise, skill wise, he's not up to par of guys like the build of a Richardson Hitchins, where this was easily an outmatched and outmaneuvered, outskilled, out talented fighter going against another fighter that is brewing with that throughout his career so far. Where Richardson Hitchins doesn't really have a lot of names on his resume, and this is finally a name that he has that he can be able to build on, go through forward with momentum, and to be able to build a better career for himself. Because again, he doesn't really have a lot of names. His name is not really that big, but he is a prospect still. He has a lot of potential, has a lot of talent and skill. I don't think, again, he's on the upper echelon of boxers so far, and especially in his division. Calling out a name such as Devin Haney, I think it would be a great matchup based on what boxing matchups are. But just the experience of Devin Haney maybe could be able to outbeat a guy like Richardson Hitchins. Even though, again, I actually do have a pretty good chance for Richardson Hitchins. Even though he doesn't have a lot of knockouts and a lot of knockout power, he did get a knockout in this one. Again, he just completely outclassed George Kambosos. The jab was working overtime. It was not missing at all. The speed difference was on showcase. 1-2s was landing right down the pipe. George Kambosos couldn't be able to really find a good distance for himself, because every single time he wanted to be able to get in range to be able to land something clean on Richardson Hitchins, Hitchins just had an answer for him every single time that he got into range, and made him pay for every single time he tried to be able to get his offense off, and really just stunted everything that he can be able to go to. But if you knew anything about boxing, that you knew exactly this was going to happen in this fight. And since it did happen and Richardson Hitchins got the job done, not much to be able to talk about there. I mean, again, he just completely outclassed George Kambosos. The jab was, again, working overtime. There was moments that Kambosos had where he was landing pretty good on the inside. They had a few good exchanges where Hitchins just didn't have any type of worry about Kambosos' power at all. He was just not worried about him at any seemingly time. There was like in the fifth or sixth round, I think it was the fifth round, I'm more confident in saying that, where it seemingly Hitchins hit him with a nice right hand on the side of the head of the Kambosos that had him hurt, and wobbled a little bit, damn near dropped him. But eventually, the continuous body work and just wearing him down and just really mentally grinding away at George Kambosos, Richardson Hitchins gets a great victory, landing a beautiful left hook right on the liver, right into the body, and sits George Kambosos is down. This is the fourth loss for Kambosos. He's probably still going to be going strong. He's probably going to be this type of fighter where he's a gatekeeper, where there's a level talented fighter where they want to be able to match him up against, and they'll see that if that fighter beats Kambosos, then they can pass the test and they can move forward. And if they don't, then Kambosos had another nice win on his resume against a prospect that had a lot of hype, and yada yada yada. Pretty much moving on forward. Talked about it a little bit earlier before about Hitchins going against Devin Haney after he called him out after the fight. Would be a fight that I want to be able to watch, because why not? I just think boxing wise it would be a great chess match between those two, even though I do think that Devin Haney is a bit more bigger and maybe a little bit more stronger than Richardson Hitchins, but Devin Haney doesn't have that type of power that is really worrisome, and I think the speed advantage is definitely towards the way of Richardson Hitchins. But I think if Hitchins goes against somebody maybe like a Teofimo Lopez, I don't know about, I think he would outbox a Ryan Garcia, but maybe like a Rolly Romero, where the power difference is definitely going to Rolly's way, and he can be able to eat the type of shots that Hitchins is hitting him with, and Rolly can just walk forward and just really have Hitchins in a lot of problems with the pressure and the power that Rolly lands with is on another level, especially at his frame. He's built like a goddamn tank. But yeah, Hitchins gets a really nice victory, a name on his resume that he can be able to move forward with, and build on himself with momentum with his career, staying undefeated and getting a nice knockout with that name as well is really solidifying his career for the future. Like this video if you obviously like this video. Comment your opinions on what you thought about this card with Hitchins, what you think about what you see in his future, as well with Andy Cruz. These guys are seemingly on their way up, their way for the ladder for boxing, and subscribe, boxing fans, because why not? You're here for a reason. You love this type of content. You want to continue on staying, and I hope you do so. So thank you guys again for watching again, and peace.